It is amazing, dare I say miraculous, to look out, to see so many here today. Can we visit for just a minute or two? We'll be looking at Matthew chapter 14, verses 22 through 33, and as always, we want to welcome any YouTube listeners, and certainly would encourage you to come along if you're able to on a Sunday morning at 10:30. But if we could just visit just for a moment together, I'd like to share with you for just a couple minutes as we sort of come into the scriptures here. And I realize we have several people that have just recently sort of come on the scene. And it's a real blessing. It's a real blessing to have you. Hope is a big word. It's one of those words that actually can be as light as a feather. For example, I hope Asda has that farmhouse loaf of bread because I really fancy some of that with my tea tonight. We can say that, right? We can say that. English is one of those languages. Now, I don't know about Romanian or Bulgarian or the language we may have represented here. But doing that in the Ukrainian that I'm learning, languages are unique. But in English, we only sort of have, hope could mean different things. So we can have the really light meaning of, I hope Asda has that farmhouse loaf that I really like, or it can be something quite meaty. I've lost hope for the future. Same word, vastly different meaning. Have you ever felt like you've lost hope for the future? As a pastor, and in the context of church and church life, I will stick my hand up and say there is an unspoken pressure to always be full of positivity, to be always full of expectation, trust. We don't have Dorian here today. That's her favorite word. And always full of, what's the word?
Hope.
Hope. Since life kind of reopened after COVID and our church lost or just people wandered off, half or more of the folks. And we're talking 2.5 years now. I will say I've lived under dark cloud. I have worked hard, putting on my Sunday face. Tried. Probably succeeded most of the time. Sometimes I'm sure I failed. Because I tend to wear my emotions on my sleeve. I'm not sure where does that come from anyway. It's a strange comment. And actually, when this whole thing about the building came in, now please don't misunderstand me. But try to understand in the context of what I'm talking about. And I don't even know that I've even told this to anyone. However, probably 8 to 10 months ago, I was secretly hoping that the building would go away. Because if the building went away, I could say, okay, as a church, we've run our space, we've run our time, and it's time to shut things down. This is what happens when you live under a dark cloud. Until about 2 or 3 months ago, I sort of started with YouTube, Lee and Sabrina. People started to appear. And it's amazing because I didn't have anything to do with it. The people that I invite never come. What does that say? What does that mean? And it's almost like, with the amount of rain and grayness that we have had over these last couple months, this last week, there's a bit of sunshine and a little beam of ray of sun that kind of comes through. Now, Charlene had just come from Jamaica. You would think Jamaica would be the land of sunshine and happiness and running around on the beach all day long, right?
Yeah.
Well, she said, Pastor Eric, she said, of the 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks I was there, 2 days of sunshine. So, I know, poor thing, she was hoping to get all this sunshine and bring it back to England with her. But you know what? It takes just a little ray of sunshine to give you a little bit of, what's the word?
Hope.
And so I would say today I have a little bit of hope. So I'd like to thank you because God uses people. God uses people. And I just want to say how much of a blessing it is to stand here before you and trust that God would speak to our hearts today. That's what we have.
Amen.
Matthew chapter 14. And as we come to this account, this is probably a very, very well-known happening of what happened with Jesus and the disciples. We're going to try and get this out and make it really apply to us, fully appreciating that Lisa's here and Chad are here, who Chad may have some memories of and PTSD, actually some going back years ago, because this is one of my most favorite accounts in all the New Testament, because it deals with our friend Peter, who's an interesting character. And it's so full of real life, and I used it in our travels around trying to raise support to come overseas. And Chad has probably heard this, Lisa has heard at least this story. Now, for anyone who may have remembered this from some time in the past, we're changing it quite a bit to apply to where we are today. But we want to set the stage. Now, we want to think about the lead up. The 12 disciples had just experienced Jesus feeding the 5,000. Now, the Bible says 5,000 men plus women and children. So you could do some averages. I'm not sure. We're certainly talking north of 10,000 people. Now, how would you like to cater for that? Can you imagine? 10,000 people plus that Jesus would have fed with just that small amount of food. Quite a miracle that was. So that's the lead up to where we are now. So we want to set the stage. Let's read through this. Matthew chapter 14, verse 22 through 33, and then we're going to dive right in. The Bible says, "Immediately Jesus made his disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side, while he sent the multitudes away." The multitudes being the 10,000, or however many thousand there were. "And when he had sent the multitudes away, he went up on the mountain by himself to pray. Now when evening came, he was alone there. But the boat was now in the middle of the sea, tossed by the waves, for the wind was contrary. Now in the fourth watch of the night, Jesus went to them walking on the sea. And when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were troubled, saying, 'It's a ghost, the spirit.' And they cried out for fear. But immediately Jesus spoke to them, saying, 'Be of good cheer, it is I, do not be afraid.' And Peter answered him and said, 'Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water.' So he said, 'Come.' And when Peter had come down out of the boat, he walked on the water to go to Jesus. And when he saw that the wind was boisterous, he was afraid. And beginning to sink, he cried out, saying, 'Lord, save me.' And immediately Jesus stretched out his hand and caught him and said to him, 'O you of little faith, why did you doubt?' And when they got into the boat, the wind ceased, and those who were in the boat came and worshipped him, saying, "Truly, you are the Son of God." We want to set the scene. What to set the scene now? Set the stage. The first few verses there in 20 through 25 gives us an incredible picture. Jesus and the disciples separated. They were together there as the thousands were fed, but Jesus said, "You go into the boat, out into the water. I'm going to go up on the mountain to have a nap."
Right.
Pray. That's what he said he wanted to do. Now, and then the scriptures go on and said there came up at that time that these disciples were in the boat. Says they were in the middle of the sea, tossed by the waves, so the wind was contrary. So there came a storm up on that sea. There was the waves there. It would have been dark. Whether there was rain or not, we don't know. It doesn't say explicitly, it doesn't say clearly whether there's rain or not, but there was a storm. It would have been a strange situation. The Bible says that it was the fourth watch of the night. That is somewhere between 3 to 6 a.m. Certainly would have been dark, would have been all that sort of environment. And then we see right at the end of that in verse 25, so that's sort of kind of setting the stage on what's happening in the verse of 25. And Jesus went to them walking on the sea. This was an unbelievable sight. Unbelievable sight. Can you imagine? Now, this is one of those times, and I wish I had a video of this. Wouldn't it have been great? Wouldn't it have been great for someone to have their mobile taking a video of this whole thing? Here was the disciples in this boat. This boat was rocking back and forth, right? Possibly the rain, and here's these disciples in this boat, and all of a sudden, they out in the distance is something walking on the sea. Now, I don't know about you. Have you ever seen anyone walk on the sea? Now, I'm not talking about David Blaine or any of those kind of folks. Have you ever seen anyone walking on the sea?
No.
On the ocean? No. It's understandable. Now, they would have hopefully have gotten the idea that Jesus, when it comes to the water, he's pretty good. Do you remember back in Matthew chapter 8, and I wondered, did the bit about Jesus calming the sea happen before this or after this? It happened before it. So Jesus calming the sea had already happened. So these disciples had some sort of idea. If Jesus is out there, he's pretty good with this thing about controlling the sea, dealing with the sea. But certainly, it was this unbelievable sight of seeing this something that's out there walking on the sea. So that kind of sets us up. And if it's possible, would you be willing to go with me, transport yourself to that time, to that place, try to find yourself a position in that boat? Boat wouldn't be big. There's only 12 people in the boat. Try to find yourself a seat or a standing spot in that boat for just the next 20 or 25 minutes. But the bit that we want to really start to think about now is the challenge that comes out in verses 26 through 28. 26 through 28. I'm sorry about that. Didn't even have the thing on. And the disciples saw him walking on the sea, and they were troubled. Would you be troubled? Would you be troubled? Yeah. And they cried out in fear. It's a ghost. It's a spirit, they said. Here's the deal. Here's the deal. Fear of the unknown. Fear of the unknown. They didn't know what it was. It was presumed some kind of a spirit of some kind out there walking on the sea. Do you have any fears? Have you had any fears? Of course we have. The unknown job, right? The unknown job. You may think, well, I interviewed for this company or I interviewed for that, so I know what. No, you don't. You know what you know what was put on the tin, right? But until you get in there, and I remember someone told me, he said, you don't really even find out where the loo is, where the toilet is for the first year or so. It takes a while to get into something new. There's a fear of the unknown job. How about the fear of the unknown neighbor? Someone moves in, you don't know what's going to be like. I think we've all been there. How about this? Fear of the unknown church. Fear of the unknown church. We've got lots of new people coming in. And they don't know. They don't know. For some of us who have gotten some miles here at RCBC already, let's turn it around. It's fear of the unknown people who are coming along. Eric, what are you talking about, fear of the unknown people? Oh, we're what? Hold on now. I've been doing this long enough to know how it's like, right? Sometimes it can be a very unsettling thing when all of a sudden you get these new people, new situations coming in. You may say, Eric, well, yeah, I'm the same way. I've got all these fears. What's it going to be like? How's it going to work? How's it going to work? Because the reality is, fear is powerful. Fear is powerful. And they cried out in fear. They cried out in fear. But really, fear is one of those things. Fear can be a lifesaver, can't it be? I mean, if our children didn't have a fear of crossing the road, what would they do? Go right over without stopping to look this way and this way. Are you thankful for that kind of a fear? No. I have a fear of heights. I don't like heights. I don't like high things. Man, that's tough. That's tough. But you deal with it, right? You get past it. But fears are real. Fears are real. They can be helpful, but also they can be life-stealing as well. Fear can steal. Fear can help, but fear can steal. I went on to a little website. It's strange how these things are out there. It's called phobialist.com. Phobia means what? Fear. It means fear. Okay. Let me throw out a few to you. A bit of a pub quiz. Ready? Here we go. A bit of a pub quiz. Nomophobia. This is the real thing, by the way. Nomophobia. You know what that is? A fear of being without your mobile phone. Now, I know some people are like that, right? Fear of being without your mobile phone. How about this one? You could probably figure this one out. Anglophobia. Fear of? The English. Fear of the English. Or English culture. Now, some may pick up on this. I'll try to say it properly. Homilophobia. 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 Now, the word homiletics means studying how to preach. Homilophobia is a fear of sermons. Fear of sermons, okay? It's real. Check it out. I mean, Google it.
That's why you have a lot of sermons.
That's right. How about, and then the poor soul who has this, phobophobia. Fear of fears. Now, how terrible is that? Fear of fears, phobophobia. What could Peter fear? Here it is. We're getting ready to focus on Peter now. Here it is. Peter's in this boat. And Peter is there. He was experiencing everything else that everyone else was experiencing. He sees this image out there. Something is out there. The storm is there. The boat is rocking back and forth. What could Peter fear? What could he fear? Just help me out with this. What?
Drowning.
Drowning, for sure. What else could Peter fear?
Just stepping out of the boat.
Stepping out of the boat, sure, and the drowning thing. And one thing I really didn't cotton on until recently looking at this again, which is an excellent thing to understand, that's how the Bible works. I don't think Peter was absolutely convinced of what this spirit is. What if it was a demon? Huh? What if it was a demon? What if it was something that Peter didn't expect? Could he? Would he? What do you think? Should Peter believe the voice, the words from this image? Now, here are some reasons. Could this be some reasons for Peter not to fear? Could it have been out of Peter's braveness? Could it have been from his swimming skill or his faith? Here's what I love. Notice what it says. That's what happened here. And they cried out in fear. But immediately in verse 7, immediately Jesus spoke to them saying, "Be of good cheer. Don't worry," he said. "It is I. Be not afraid." Be not afraid. The greatest comfort, the greatest reason for Peter not to be fearful was the sheer fact that Jesus is saying, "I am here. And because I am here, don't be afraid." Do you remember we just got done looking over Christmas time? Didn't this happen other times? About this thing about fear. Fear. Dealing with fear. In Matthew chapter 28, Jesus says this in another way. He says, "I'm getting ready to go up, to ascend up to the Father." And he says, "Lo, I am with you to the end of the age," to the end of the earth. I am with you. I am with you. So the same Jesus that said to Peter, "Don't be afraid, because I am here," is the same Jesus that's saying to us, to you, "Don't be afraid." Now, getting around and talking to people, by the way, each one of us has a story. Each one of us has a story. And each one of us has reasons that we could fear all kinds of things in life. Okay? Fear of the future, fear of something new, fear of the church, any sorts of things. But can I give you just a word of hopeful comfort, advice? The same Jesus that was there to comfort Peter with the words, "I am here," is the same Jesus that gave the words of comfort to those disciples, "I will be with you," not on a Sunday morning only, but when? Always. So when you're at work at Esley and you know that someone is confronting you, you can be comforted to know that Jesus is there and the Holy Spirit can give you that strength to make that next step. And when life happens and people come against us, be comforted to know that Jesus says, "I am here. I am here." Then we come up to something incredibly interesting. He says this. He says, Peter answered him and said, "Lord, if it is you," now I find that interesting. "If it is you, command me to come to you on the water." Here's the call from Peter to Jesus. Now, I was thinking about that. What was he talking about? "Lord, if it's you, command me to come to you." Two possibilities came into my mind. First of all, that Peter may have been suspecting a lying spirit. Possibly a demon trying to get Peter to do something that he wasn't meant to do or something. Or, if it was truly Jesus, that Jesus could give him that ability to do something miraculous that Peter never would have thought about. And then I started thinking, are we willing? Are we willing to ask God to call us into His service in all different shapes and forms? Alicia told me when she was here the first time, she headed on a mission trip. That still happening?
Yes,
When is that happening?
at the end of March.
End of March. Where are you heading to?
Eswatini.
Which is where? Africa. Okay. Everyone knows where Africa is, right? She's going to Africa, somewhere in Africa. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? Are we willing to ask God to call us? And I find so many believers saying, well, God can't use me. And we talked about some of that last week, didn't we? We have a whole list of reasons why God can't use me. And I was working on this in the office, and I turned my eyes to the right. You know what my eyes fell on? This thing right here. This is my little phone charger. And I'll tell you what, this thing has been with me, I don't know how many years. But I'm pulling this thing off right here. And I'm not sure if you can see it, but this charger has seen some miles. It's broken right there. It's broken right there. It's ugly. It's got all kinds of green stuff on it. I'm not sure what that's from. But here's the amazing thing. Plug that in there like that. And I connect it up to my phone. And I plug it into the power source. And it still works. Yeah. We may think that we're broken. We may think that because of what has happened in life, we're like this. So God can't use me. But the thing is, when you get plugged into the power source, then all of a sudden, everything changes. Don't feel. You know what? We've all got situations in the past to deal with. Maybe we've hurt, maybe sin issues that we've dealt with. But don't say because you've had issues in the past that God can't use me today. Don't go there. Don't go there. God is great at forgiving. God is great at resurrection. He is great at that. Do we want God to call us? Do we want God to use us? And then we come to what I'm going to call the most incredible, exciting thing as we come to think about the response now. The response in those last few verses 29 through 33. Jesus responds to Peter. He responds to Peter. In verse 29, so he, Jesus, said one word. He said, come. I wonder if Peter was expecting that. I wonder. We don't know. We can't get into Peter's mind. But Jesus says to Peter, come. Now, I wonder if there's something in Jesus' voice that reminded Peter of Jesus' call to him back some time ago. When he says, come, follow me, and I'll make you fishers of men. I'm wondering if there's something in Peter's mind that connected the two and said, ha! This is Jesus. Now, this is a big prayer request. You got to realize that, right? Peter had never seen it done by anyone other than Jesus now. There was no instruction manual. There's not even any YouTube instructional video on how to walk on water. Poor Peter, the only thing he had was the difficult situation he was in and Jesus calling him. What an opportunity. What an opportunity. Peter then responds to Jesus. He responds to Jesus. He gets out of the boat and Peter walks on water. I don't know how Peter did it. I don't know what was going on. I don't know the physicalness on how he did it. The scriptures only say that he got out of the boat and he walked on water to go to Jesus. Each one of us here today, every one of us, will need to make a decision on how we approach 2024, this new year. Each one of us are in a boat. Okay? We're in a boat. And if we are wanting Jesus to call us, we need to be willing to listen. Listen to the first step. And if we'll listen, then we need to make the decision on how are we going to respond to that. Now, I can imagine. You know, of the 12, Peter wasn't the only fisherman, right? Correct?
Yeah.
I mean, fishermen, that was the thing. Fishermen. I could imagine maybe some of the others who were fishermen saying, "Oh, Peter, wait a minute, Peter. You're not doing it right. You're not getting out of the boat in the right way, Peter." And criticizing how he got out of the boat. Maybe there's some who have never even been in a boat much, like Matthew, who was what was Matthew's job? He was a tax collector. He wasn't a fisherman like Steve. I've never been in a boat before, maybe once, but certainly not this situation. I'm just going to watch to see how this works. I can't give him any advice. I've never tried to get out of a boat. And there's all kinds of responses. I wonder about how Peter got out of the boat. You may say, Eric, what is the point of all that? Well, we'll come to this and we'll try to wind it up now. So the question is, where do we fit in now? Where do we fit in? And this is where it's going to make, hopefully, a lot of practical sense as we think about this account and try to wind it all up. So where do we fit in? Where does every person here today fit in? First of all, there were 12 blokes in the boat. 12 men each in the boat, possibly with each having their own way to get out of the boat. What was the goal, by the way? What was the goal? Peter's goal was to walk on the water. And to walk on the water, he had to get out of the boat. So, Eric, what does that mean to us? Well, the reality is, especially with our sort of new folks coming along and our own previous experiences, right? We all have different church experiences, don't we? Mm-hmm. The reality is that's truth. We all have different church experiences. We want to be as biblical as we can. What I tend to find out is that because person A said, well, in my church, back in wherever, this is the way we did this. Or person B, well, this is the way we did this. It'd be sort of like someone saying to Peter, well, Peter, that's not how I get out of a boat. I think you should get out of a boat this way. Or maybe we have folks with very little church experience, and they're just sort of sat back like the other disciples saying, well, I don't know how to get out of a boat, so I'm just kind of hanging back just to see. So one of the dangers is, and this is something that Satan can use to cause disruption, to cause clickiness, to cause problems, is that we need to understand that each one of us has a different background that we come from, don't we? Even our families have different backgrounds. And I tell you this, I'll tell you my towel story. Is that okay? Some of you have heard this before. I'll tell it again. When Lisa and I were first married, and we're talking a few months in now, we were there working together, folding the laundry. And she had a towel in her hand, and she was folding it, and I had a towel in my hand. And she looked to me and she said, Eric, that's not how you fold a towel. And I said, Lisa, that's how I fold a towel. And I said, okay, here we go. Yeah, round one. So I guess the bottom line is, if the end goal, now we want to fold towels biblically, right? We want to fold towels biblically. But at the end, sometimes, and there are some very important things that we need to agree together. Okay? However, the reality is that some of you are going to fold towels this way, some of you are going to fold towels this way, and is that okay?
Yeah.
It is okay. It is
No.
okay. No. There is no Christmas way of folding a towel. I'll tell you that right now. There is no Christmas way. So we need to understand that. We need to understand that. Number two. Fear can challenge us, urge us to growth, or fear can cripple us. of what it's going to be like for these new people to come. What's this new church like? What's this new, all these kind of things. It can cripple us or it can urge us to love one another, to serve one another, to be there for one another, to love one another. Don't allow the differentness, the word? Don't allow different things to cripple you. Yes, we want to be biblical. Yes. Don't allow it to cripple you. Number 3. Everyone heard everything that happened, correct? Everyone heard Jesus say, "Come." However, only one stepped out of the boat. Only one. Now, I'm not saying there's only one of us here that are going to say, "Jesus, God, I really want to step out of the boat." We can all be like Peter. We can all be like Peter saying, "I want to be able to follow Jesus, whatever he has for me this year." It'll come down to you, me, saying, am I willing to be like Peter? Or, now the thing is, being in the boat is comfortable, right? Around to you that's comfortable. They've never been out of the boat before walking on the water. Yeah, they see Jesus do it. Oh, Jesus, that's Jesus. Even if they said it is Jesus, but it's Jesus. I'm a bloke. How can I do that? The boat was comfortable. But here's the thing. Peter is the only one who could put Water Walker, Walked on Water, on the CD. Isn't that amazing? Everyone heard and saw everything that was going off. Of all the 12, Peter was the only one. I guess if there's anything that I could share with you as sort of a closing statement, if you're looking for an exciting Christian life, it's not being in the boat. It's being out on the water. That's what. Oh boy, when Alicia told me she's going to go to Africa on a mission trip. And the first time I've been was last year. And someone said, Africa has a special little phrase. It is Africa. You know, unique things about Africa. And it's incredible. You're going to have an amazing time. And to hear someone be willing to do that, that's stepping out of the boat. That is fantastic. So this year, are we willing for God to call us? I mean, I don't know what these next few months may develop into. I've got some hope. I guess what I'm asking, would you join with me? Some hope for the future. I don't know what's going to happen to the building now. I don't know. But if Doreen would be sitting there, she would say, Eric, we've been here before. We're talking to Chris, you remember that? Yeah, 12 years ago, whatever, when we didn't have this, and we were stuck in a little room there, and all kinds of things. So that's why we call it a walk of faith. That's the word, thank you. Walk of faith. So would we be willing, as individuals, as families, to say, God, you know what, I want to be like Peter. I want to listen to what you're calling me to do. God's call for Heather and Kofi will be different than Lee and Sabrina, different for Miles and Diane, and from the seat. And that's good. I mean, we're not all called to the same thing, but we all have the same Lord who calls. Then are we willing to step out of the boat, even though it's a bit uncomfortable? Knowing that who's out on the water? Who's out on the water? It's Jesus out on the water.